Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of Princess Anne, the Princess Royal's visit to CFB Borden this morning. This is the second day the Princess Royal has been here in our region. Just yesterday, you remember, we brought you her visit to the South Shore Centre in Barrie, where she paid a visit to the Gray and Simcoe Foresters, a reserve unit with the military, and also dedicated a monument, which will be part of Barrie's Military Heritage Park. And now we're watching another part of this official military working visit by the Princess. Here comes her motorcade right now, arriving at the Canadian Forces Health Services Training Center out at Base Borden. This is going to be a very significant day for the Princess Royal. She'll be conferring a very, very special honor onto the Royal Canadian Medical Service. The base of that service is at Base Borden, and they play a very significant role in our military. They help wounded soldiers on the battlefield. They've been involved in international operations to help in conflict zones, all the while advancing medicine and advancing our understanding of medicine as it relates to the military and as it relates to combat as well. The Princess Royal is arriving right now at Base Borden, where she will be inspecting an honor guard of the Royal Canadian Military Service. She'll be touring some of the facilities. Here she is, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, wearing a long red coat on this chilly morning. A very signature fall day here at Base Borden. The Princess Royal was just helped out of the vehicle, escorted by Surgeon General Brigadier General Jean-Robert Bernier, and she's being introduced now to Medical Branch Colonel, Commandant, Major General, retired Pierre Morissette, and Royal Canadian Medical Service Chief Warrant Officer Stephen Goupil.
Major James Bradley.
Garde de service de santé royal canadien, salut royal. Présentez! Out! Out! Au pied! Out!
Good morning, Your Royal Highness. Major James Bradley, your guard commander. Do you wish to inspect me? Thank you.
That is fine. Find a moment so that we can get.
And that was a royal salute to Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, as she inspects the guard of the Royal Canadian Medical Service. This is one of 6 Canadian medical groups that the Princess Royal is Colonel-in-Chief of. Of course, another one is the Gray and Simcoe Foresters. She inspected them yesterday in Barrie. Princess Anne taking time to stop and chat with some of the troops here. The Royal Canadian Medical Service is part of a bigger group of Canadian personnel, 6,300 of them altogether that make up the Canadian Forces Health Services Group. And so this is one element of the Canadian Forces Health Services Group, and they've been doing quite a bit of work at Borden, Borden being the base of the Royal Canadian Medical Service. Princess Anne taking time to stop and chat with some personnel from the Royal Canadian Medical Service. You know, as we mentioned yesterday during her inspection of the Grey and Simcoe Foresters, you can only imagine what's going through the minds of some of these personnel as they have a personal, up-close moment with their Colonel-in-Chief, a member of the royal family, maybe one of the only members of the royal family they may ever get to meet in their lifetimes, up close and personally like this. Princess Anne has really made it a priority during this trip to stop and get to know some of the personnel of the units she is Colonel-in-Chief of. And this is a very significant military unit, as we mentioned. Royal Canadian Medical Service, been involved in all sorts of operations all around the world, including Haiti and Afghanistan most recently. In fact, Princess Anne is going to present a very rare and special honor to this group for its work in Afghanistan a little bit later on in the morning, and we'll be bringing that to you as well. It's only the third time she's presented this honor to one of her military units here in Canada. This is a big day for the royal family, of course, as it relates to things happening around the world. I mean, not only is Princess Anne here in our region, but back in England, Prince George is being christened today. Princess Anne will be missing that, but so will many of the great-aunts and great-uncles. Buckingham Palace telling us that the christening of Prince George today back in the UK is a very small and intimate family affair. In fact, no great-aunts or great-uncles were invited to that particular ceremony today. Her Royal Highness is going to now complete the inspection of the arrival guard and receive the royal salute. And that completes the arrival guard, and the Princess Royal is now being led inside the Canadian Forces Health Services Center out at Base Borden, where she's going to visit with students. She's also going to later on tour the One Field Hospital collective protection capability, and that's a military term, but basically what it is it's a very involved, a very advanced training center that is often used in battlefields. It simulates situations involving chemical, radiological, nuclear attacks. These medical personnel who make up the Royal Canadian Medical Service have a very awesome responsibility as far as not only protecting their fellow troops, but in dealing with other wounded in the battlefield and helping civilian casualties. And in general, as I'm told, the work that they do in the battlefield, overseas, when they're deployed here at home, goes a long way to helping us understand medicine as well in the civilian world.
Okay, up. Officers, fall out. Guard, stand at ice. Sergeant Major. Hard. Guard, attack! Cut! Guard, close on turn! March! Pow! Arm! Move to the right and files. Right! Turn! By left! Quick! March!
So this is the completion of the arrival guard and the royal salute to Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, upon her arrival at Base Borden, where she's the Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Canadian Medical Service. And as you can see, this is a very, very elaborate ceremony. It's rooted in tradition. It does not end until the Princess Royal, or whatever member of the royal family, or whatever Colonel-in-Chief in question is being saluted, actually departs the scene. And the guard, the welcome guard, departing now, completing this ceremony. Inside, Princess Anne is going to speak with some students, receive some briefings, and learn a little bit more about what the Royal Canadian Medical Service has been doing around the world and here at home as they prepare for their missions here at home and around the world as well. And it's in particular this group's work in Afghanistan from 2006 until Canada's combat mission ended there in 2009, which is going to be recognized when we come back a little bit later as the Princess presents them with the Princess Banner. In fact, it's actually called the Princess Royals Banner. She's going to present that to the Royal Canadian Medical Service for some outstanding achievements that they recorded while they were in Afghanistan, working there in the battlefield. And something that earned them international recognition, by the way, from NATO as well and from some other countries. So quite a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that we don't get to see on a daily basis out at Base Borden. The training that gets put to use in the battlefields of Afghanistan, in disaster zones like Haiti, and work that those troops are going to be recognized for in a royal way a little bit later today. We are going to take a short break from our live broadcast as the Princess is inside. That's closed off to cameras for the moment. We will be coming back in about a half hour's time, though, to bring you that ceremony where the Princess Royal's banner will be conferred upon the Royal Canadian Medical Service out at Base Borden. This is day 2 of Princess Anne's visit to our region and her 21st visit to Canada. And we will be back a little bit later from our studios and live at Base Borden. I'm Tony Grace. We do hope you'll come back and join us then. Barrie.ctvnews.ca. Let everyone know we're on live this morning bringing all of this to you. We'll see you soon.
The Princess Royal's banner is the 3rd royal banner ever presented to an element of the Canadian Armed Forces. The 2nd royal banner was also presented to the RCMS by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, in 1985 to commemorate the centenary of Canadians' military medical service. The Princess Royal's banner will be conserved and exhibited at the RCMS home station, the Canadian Forces Health Services Training Centre at Canadian Forces Base Borden, and will be paraded on appropriate occasions. In Commonwealth armies, the Colonel-in-Chief of a regiment, usually a patron of royal descent. Although they have no operational role, they are kept informed of all important activities of the regiment and pay occasional visits to its operational units. Their chief purpose is to maintain a direct link between the regiment and the sovereign and royal family. The RCMS previously received a royal banner from our then Colonel-in-Chief, the Queen Mother, to commemorate the anniversary of the service's contribution to the Canadian Armed Forces a century after the first operational deployment of a medical unit in support of Canadian troops. The Queen Mother's banner was presented to the RCMS at Queen's Park on the 13th of July, 1985, with an honor guard from the Canadian Forces Medical Service School on parade. The Queen Mother's banner is one of the principal symbols of the Royal Canadian Medical Service. As non-combatants expect to defend their patients, it is British and Canadian tradition that on parade, medical personnel do not fix bayonets and medical officers do not draw their swords, but salute with the open hand. All military spectators shall stand and salute during the playing of the Royal Salute and the National Anthem.
Good time they're running the field hospital stuff. That's what I thought.
So we're waiting right now, as you look live at Base Borden, for the banner ceremony to begin. And this is going to be Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Canadian Medical Service, presenting them with the Princess Royal's banner. And this is for valorous and meritorious service. So it's for their outstanding work that they've done on battlefields, in disaster zones, and here at home as well. Interesting fact you heard there, you'll notice that none of the officers or the troops in this guard are bearing bayonets or swords. And that's customary during a military parade, but not so here, because it's their job. They're in a non-combat role when they're in the battlefield. It's their job to protect their fellow soldiers. So when they salute Her Royal Highness, they'll be doing so with their hands. And that is a fact that's actually unique to the Royal Canadian Medical Service. The Princess Royal has just actually spent some time touring their training facility. What you're looking at here is one of the protective tents that are used by the Royal Canadian Medical Service. And this is basically a sealed off, a very highly controlled environment where they deal with serious casualties on the battlefield. It's sealed off against possible chemical, nuclear, radiological attacks or interference of any kind, and it's a very controlled environment. As you can imagine, a very high stress environment where some very critical decisions are made with very little facts and on very short notice as well. And we just shot this morning, this video that you're seeing here. The Princess will be touring this after she presents the Royal Canadian Medical Service with the Princess Royal's banner. So a little bit of a demonstration of what these units look like when they're set up and in action in the battlefield, and how the soldiers are protected against the threats that they face while they're working in those very dangerous war zones, those combat zones, as they did in Afghanistan from 2006 until just a couple of years ago. And in fact, it's their work in Afghanistan that's going to be specifically singled out and mentioned, along with their over a century of military service under various regiment names and under various different group names, that will be recognized when the Princess Royal presents the Princess Royal's banner. As we heard, this is only the third time the Princess Royal's banner has been presented to a Canadian military group, and it was this group who received it last in the 1980s when 100 years of Canadian military medical service was being marked. Prince George's christening is happening at this moment back in the UK, so quite a day for the royal family, as the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, is here in Canada for a very special honor that she's conferring on her troops, her soldiers here. She's Colonel-in-Chief of this medical service, the Royal Canadian Medical Service. And back home in the UK, a small, intimate ceremony where Prince George is being christened. Back in the UK, that's a small, very private family ceremony where there were no great aunts or great uncles invited, so that's why the princess's activities continue as planned here at Base Borden and what you're seeing here this morning. So we're looking at members of the Royal Canadian Medical Service, and in fact, there are other people. You can see civilians in this crowd too, and that's because the medical service works with all kinds of civilian agencies as well in doing its work. Some of the civilian agencies they work with are the Canadian Nurses Association, the Canadian Medical Association, the Physiotherapy Association, the Canadian College of Health Leaders, the Paramedics Association of Canada, the Canadian Society for Medical Laboratory Science. There are all kinds of civilian medical professionals who contribute in some way to what the Royal Canadian Medical Service does at home, in the battlefield, and in disaster zones around the world. You'll recall yesterday the Princess Royal was in Barrie. She paid a special visit to the South Shore Centre. She inspected another group of which she's Colonel-in-Chief. That's the Grey and Simcoe Foresters, about 160 reservists who are based in both Barrie and Owen Sound. And yesterday she also dedicated a monument at the South Shore Centre in Barrie, which is going to be part of Barrie's future Military Heritage Park. That monument pays tribute to Canada's 96 Victoria Cross recipients. And that was a big moment for the city of Barrie yesterday. And it was a nice crowd watching that happen yesterday and seeing royalty up close. If you want to head to our website, by the way, barrie.ctvnews.ca, you can see an entire list of the Victoria Cross recipients, all 96 of them. 2 of them were from our region, by the way. After this event at Borden today, the Princess Royal has a couple of private events in Toronto tonight, and those are with organizations that have links to the royal family, recognition groups, membership groups, and so a couple of private functions in Toronto tonight, and then it's off to Kingston, where she's actually also going to be having quite a big day. She is going to be visiting the Communications and Electronics branch of the Canadian military. She's also Colonel-in-Chief of that branch, and she will visit them, and then she will return to the UK. Again, you're looking at members of the Royal Canadian Medical Service. This was known as the Canadian Forces Medical Service up until only this year, when the Queen presented them with the new name, the Royal Canadian Medical Service. And adding that name Royal to the title of this unit was seen as a way to recognize the valor and the courage that they display while they're in the battlefield. Remember, these are the soldiers who are protecting their fellow soldiers when they're out there in the battlefield. They're caring for the wounded. They're doing critical work on the battlefield and helping civilians as well, I might add, in a lot of these different situations. We have crews out at Base Borden right now covering this story from so many different angles, and you're going to be able to see and hear from a lot of the people who were involved in today's event. Tonight on CTV News at 6, we'll have full coverage. We are also going to have full coverage on what's going on with the royal family back in London from our reporters over on the other side of the pond as they bring us the story on Prince George's christening today, and another much anticipated moment for royal watchers. And we've seen the sun peeking through from time to time through the cloudy sky out at Base Borden. Thankfully, the snow has held off. We've had reports of snow flurries overnight and early this morning in some parts of our viewing area, including Dufferin County, up in Elmvale as well in northern Simcoe County. So some places getting a bit of a dusting, but the weather seems to be cooperating for today's ceremony with the Princess Royal out at Base Borden. Just a reminder that this is Princess Anne, the Princess Royal's 21st visit to Canada.
Please stand for the arrival of the Princess Royal and the Royal Salute.
And here we go. The Royal Salute is about to happen to begin the banner ceremony.
Rassemblement de service de santé royal canadien. Salut royal. Présenté. Out. Rassemblement. Allez, Paul. Out. Okay. Out.
Please be seated.
Parade. Stand up. Right.
In preparation for the blessing of the Princess Royal's banner, the drums will be piled. Drums are traditionally piled to provide an altar for the purpose of holding church services in the field. Today, the practice is primarily used during the presentation of colors ceremony.
Go, Major. Sir.
Numbers attention. Right turn. Drummers quick march. Drummers march. Time. Drummers halt. Inwards turn. Drummers pile drums.
This is the piling of the drums right now, and in just a moment, the Princess Royal's banner is going to be unfurled and draped over the drums. And the Princess Royal's banner is being honored today, rather is being bestowed upon the Royal Canadian Medical Service for more than 100 years of medical service in the military, and in particular for the work that they've done in Afghanistan, in the combat zones of Afghanistan in the past decade. Let's watch. And we believe that is the banner right there, which is going to be draped over the drums. They seem to be